Perfect timing with this question because I'm just about to get a new batch of compost started here. So I'm going to explain to you what I put in my compost and give you a basic breakdown of the composting process, specifically in a tumbler. So I just got this side of my tumbler emptied out. To get a new batch started in here, you're going to need two basic things, your brown material and your green material. Your brown material is going to be your carbon, stuff like dried leaves. What I'm using here is shredded paper. Your green material is going to be your nitrogen. That's going to be your kitchen scraps, fruits and vegetables, egg shells, coffee grounds. You don't want to use any kind of meats or fats in that. When you first get started composting, figuring out your carbon and nitrogen materials can be a little confusing. There's a lot of resources online. If you just Google it, you can find a lot of simple charts to help you figure that out. One thing a lot of people do mistake though is coffee grounds. Even though you might think that would be a brown material carbon, it's actually nitrogen. So I've been very successful composting by trying to keep my ratio at like 70% carbon, which can be confusing when you get started because you're going to look at like all of this paper here and think you have a lot more carbon here than you do with this little bucket of kitchen scraps. It would be your nitrogen. But you got to keep in mind that this stuff here is much more dense than this paper. So it's going to look like we're using a lot more carbon than we are, and I know it seems confusing, but once you get through your first couple of batches, it's going to become routine, and it's going to be super easy for you. So we're just going to layer this. I'm going to go ahead and get a layer of the shredded paper in here. And then kitchen scraps is coffee grounds, tomatoes, lettuce. And then we'll top that off with another layer of the shredded paper. And I also have, from my last batch of compost, some of these clumps that weren't quite done yet. We're just going to throw those back in there. That's going to help get this batch started. And yes, this is a litter box. This works really well for getting under your tumbler so that you can empty it out. One thing you might want to try is some compost starter. It's not absolutely necessary, but it will get the process moving along. I just have to have some, so I'm going to go ahead and add it. And then we're going to go ahead and get this all soaked down. You want to get it wet, but you don't want it to be a mess, just so that everything stays damp. So we'll get some water added to that, and then we'll go ahead and turn it. So I'll just continue adding to this, making sure that I try my best to maintain that 70% carbon, 30% nitrogen balance. And I'll just turn this every 3 days probably. Just give it a few spins. And check on it every other day at least to make sure it's not drying out. You want to keep it damp, but you don't want to let it dry out. If it dries out, it's not going to be doing anything but just sitting there. So this is the other side of my tumbler. I don't know how well you can see that, but this has been in there for about a month. So now that I've started a new batch on this side, I'm going to stop adding to this side. I'm just going to let it do its thing. Just continue to turn it every few days, make sure it doesn't dry out. And I should have a batch of finished compost here within about a month because it takes about 2 months for me to get a finished batch of compost out of these tumblers. So even being this close to the bin and the tumblers here, there's no smell from this at all, and there shouldn't be. If your compost is like gross and slimy, chances are you've added something you shouldn't have, or you probably just need to add more carbon to the mix. It's basically the same process for the bins, except it's a little more work because you have to turn them manually. They make a little corkscrew tool that is designed to get down in here and turn the compost. I prefer to use one of these garden claws. First of all, they're a lot cheaper, and second, you can really get down in there, grab the compost from the bottom, lift it up to the top. I think these do a great job of turning these compost bins. Pretty much anything from your garden can go into your compost. The only thing you want to be careful with is grass clippings. If you have your lawn treated for weeds, you don't want to put that in there. and I like to avoid tomatoes and cucumbers in particular late season. Even if you don't really see any signs of disease, you never really know, so I'd just rather not risk it. Composting can be a little intimidating to get started, but I promise you, once you get through a couple batches, troubleshoot what you're doing wrong, it'll just become routine. You won't even think about it.